Hi guys. For my case study, I did walling off or welcoming in, and I need to be a little bit quicker this time because I reached the max limit last time. So uh, forgive me on if something seems a little too much, if there's too much brevity here. So the context, it's an overview on free speech with inclusivity at a SEC meeting in Jersey K through 8, right? Students chant to build the wall. First grade students, they build a block while they chant build the wall. A white seventh grader felt excluded by a poster expressing the acceptance of all minority students. Students of right and left wing views have trouble remaining friendly and civil, and the SEC determined a policy that defines what is considered free speech, right? First, we need to look at the First Amendment of the U.S., right? They should make Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people to peaceably assemble to petition the government for a redress of grievances, right? Here we have new Stopbullying.gov, key components in state anti-bullying laws, policies, and regulations, outlines a range of detrimental effects bullying has on students, including impacts on student learning, school safety, student engagement in the school environment. Includes a list of stuff, talks about prohibited conduct, also lets you know that it can be through different medias or even through sharing screenshots and stuff, even if you didn't create it. Issues defined in the case study. Different things that happened in this case study that are brought up at the meeting. A student is ostracized for their political beliefs and her family's political beliefs. In this case, she was, as well as her family, a Trump supporter, but it could be either way, right? Depending on the situation, I don't believe this is a case directly off. Just based off this, we have limited information. But at hand, to be ostracized is freedom of association. You don't have to hang out with people you don't want, right? It doesn't mean you can't encourage your friends to be more accepting of her beliefs. But if we're talking about the First Amendment, to ostracize simply means to exclude, right? It does not necessarily mean that there is bullying or harassment involved. Kids are allowed to do that, whether it's based on politics, interests, they just don't like each other, whatever. Then again, like I said, it's good to try to facilitate people to get along and be friendly, right? And to not be so fickle. One student made a comment about criminal illegals. I mean, at its core, this is objectively true, right? Illegals have criminal intent. There's like law breaking. Now, this is in regards to, we don't have too much context. We know it's in regards to immigration, and she knew about a cousin of one of her friends she said that to. That's all we know. We don't know what she said about it. I think here, with this context, we don't know that it's harassment or bullying. The only thing I think we could say further without more conduct or more context is that crimes and illegality doesn't necessarily correlate directly to what is moral or ethical. One father states white students are treated at school as an unjustly privileged majority. This same one, he said his student felt excluded from a poster affirming different groups of students. This has to do with kind of collectivism. There's a poster that says black students, Black Lives Matter, you are loved. Mexican students, there are no walls here, you are loved. And the student felt excluded because it didn't mention some collective that he was in. And then first graders built a wall and chanted build a wall and stated, which doesn't sound necessarily too much if we don't know the context, but we're building a wall to keep the Mexicans out. We realize that this is certainly related to immigration. Right? This is much more likely to be harassment, but we also have to remember these are first graders, so we don't know what the intent is there, right? There's a lot of monkey see, monkey do at that age, to where we don't know that they're trying to hurt people, right? It could be ignorance, it could be just mimicry, right? And the teacher does a fairly good job. She asks and inquires onto why they do it and what their reasoning is. Instead of just simply going straight to reprimand, right? She helps the students learn what's going on. Excerpts towards the end of the case study. I don't think we should be posting anything on walls. This is the father of the kid saying that singles students out based on race or other defining features. This is to do with collectivism again. We're in a time in society right now where collectivism runs rampant, right? There's a tribe for everything, whether it's politically, you're on the left, the right, Republicans, Democrats, right? Everyone goes to their own group, whether it's based on gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, everywhere, right? I agree with that sentiment. And the posting on the walls is done by the teachers, and I do think the teachers need to maintain neutrality in general, right? We need to ensure a safe environment where everyone is loved and cared for, right? This is the bread and butter of anti-bullying, anti-harassment. We want a safe environment where kids are able to learn properly, and not have these distractions and social pressures, right? We want them to be able to focus on their education. Lastly, Principal Winters says we need to stay politically neutral or at least cultivate respect for different perspectives. I totally agree with that. I think it's important for teachers to act more as moderators or referees, right? You can challenge kids, but you shouldn't challenge them according to your beliefs. You should challenge them according to their beliefs, right? You play devil's advocate for the other side. That's one thing. But if you say, you're wrong, believe what I say, I think that is outside the purview of a teacher, except in possibly like the most obvious of circumstances that are, our society is in unison, in complete agreement with, like the abolition of slavery or something, right? Where it's, basically everyone can get along with that. Then the last one said, we cannot synthesize these goals without acknowledging the asymmetry of power between groups, which is historical, structural, and institutional. Man, this is kind of a mess. It's kind of a platitude here without really saying a whole lot. Sure, well, I don't know what acknowledging does, right? Let's acknowledge it. Okay, now what? Asymmetry of power in history, yeah, sure. Structural, which means cultural, right? All right, we can acknowledge all of those things, but I don't think that gives us a means or an ends, really. It's kind of just grandstanding to me. I can't make heads or tails of what's supposed to happen through that. Institutional, yeah, okay, school's an institution. If you can find asymmetry of powers, unjust asymmetry of power, right? Teachers should have more power than the students in terms of classroom authority and stuff of that nature. If you can find examples of institutional power, asymmetries of power, that are egregious, yes, then we can correct those. The prior to, I'm not sure what to do with that. I think it's a kind of a empty platitude. All right, the analysis. The First Amendment affirms legal rights of citizens, but does not, or at least is not, fully recognized in public school policies. Right? There's historical precedents. There's laws that said they get some, right? But I mean, my students wear school uniforms. They're not allowed to draw swastikas. They're not allowed to draw gang stuff. They're not allowed to wear gang clothing. So it's not absolute, at least not at school, right? I'm not even going to say it's absolute in the U.S. anymore. I'm not saying that's bad, right? They're children. I don't think children have full rights in everything, right? Obviously, there's laws on the Second Amendment that prevent children from owning certain things at certain ages. We want an open forum, but the First Amendment is not absolute there. It grants them legal protections, but it doesn't grant them full indemnity from any school reprisals or punishment, right? Bullying and harassment are antithetical to a safe and caring school environment. Absolutely. We just got to make sure we know what bullying and harassment is. Where does that line between political debate and bullying and harassment come? I don't know. You can get angry during a debate. You can get, it's best to keep emotions, obviously. But once you go to ad hominems, I would say that's a quick one, right? You can teach people to discuss and disagree civilly. I would think that is the teacher's job. And that goes to the next point. Teachers and administration should act more as neutral parties, i.e., referees or moderators, rather than participants in political discourse, right? You can teach about the government stuff, but if you're having kids discuss different political ideologies, I think it's best to keep them civil, engaged, and to question them rather than to tell them what is right or wrong on that. Lastly, collectivism is a practice that inherently, by definition, causes division. This is something I'm very big on. We can all agree racism is bad. What makes it so bad is that it's collectivist. It's a very ugly form of collectivist. But when you start to make laws and rules based on any attributable feature, this drives that human nature of tribalism. It's a driving force for it, right? And as soon as you divide each other, each group is going to vie for more power. They want more rights. They want more. Not that more rights isn't bad, but they're fighting for rights only for themselves, right? And then they pit it against each other. Instead, I think individualism is much better, right? We recognize that the smallest minority is the individual, and make sure that everyone has that. Obviously, once you do that, yes, there were people that were historically marginalized. You can't change the past in that nature. You can only work for the present, right? At the time, we could talk about a whole other thing on reparations or something of that nature later. But collectivism is, I think, a major problem in our society for driving division and hate and anger, bullying, harassment, right? If we can recognize each person, I think that's better. And maybe it wouldn't make the one kid feel excluded from a poster that was trying to be inclusive. So, my references: Harvard University Graduate School. This was the actual case study. The Bill of Rights from the First Amendment, the U.S. Constitution, and Stopbullying.gov. Trying to think what else. I tried to really emphasize not being. No one knew what my politics were in my class. I teach history. We would talk about the vaccines during. We'd watch CNN 10. We'd talk about vaccines, vaccine mandates. I would ask the kids. I would question them on their belief, right or wrong. Kids didn't know who I voted for. Kids don't know, or if I voted. Kids don't know what I believed in. I just challenged their beliefs in a respectful manner and made sure that they were the same to each other. And I kept things from getting heated. I think that's the best teachers can do for their classes. I hope this is a presentation that will be beneficial to some of you.